All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Ashley Kelly. I'm the 2016 Olympian and 400-meter national record holder. I'm the chairman of the BVIOC Athlete Commission. And before I share more of the Athletes Commission, I want to first congratulate all our graduates, our high school and college graduates. I know we are adjusting to the new normal, but your accomplishment is a major milestone in life, and we want to wish everyone good luck while they transition in life and your next phase in your career. So next, I want to thank the British Virgin Islands Olympic Committee for acknowledging the importance of the athlete's voice and empowering our athletes by providing support to form this Athletes Commission. So the mission of the commission is to represent the views of the athlete and make their voice heard within the BVIOC, and to provide support through programs and activities to increase our participation at regional and international games. So along with myself, I want to introduce the other members of the Athletes Commission. Karen, quickly, can you just monitor the weight room and let anybody else in if there's still people there?
I'll do that.
And as I was saying, in addition to myself, we have the 2019 Pan Am gold medalist, Chantel Malone. If Chantel can say hi.
Hi. Wait, you can hear me? I don't know.
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Next, we have the CAC silver medalist and shot put national record holder, Eldred Biggs Henry.
Hey, what's going on?
We have our softball national team member, Shamura Penn.
Good night, everyone.
We have our squash team member, a national team member, Joe Chapman, who is joining us from England. It is 12 a.m. over there, so thank you, Joe, for being here with us.
Thanks, Ashley.
And last but not least, we have our host and moderator for tonight, the Commonwealth, CAC, and NACAC 400-meter hurdle gold medalist and two-time Diamond League winner, Kyra McMaster. Yay.
Hello, everyone.
So we are here for the interest of the athlete, and we hope that we can be a resource to the federations, the coaches, and the athletes. So please feel free to contact any member of the social media, Karen, stop laughing at me, to contact any member of the AC via email or social media platforms. Our email is athletescommission@bviolympics.org. I will leave it in the chat for your perusal as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. McMaster, and he will introduce our speaker for tonight. I really, really hope that everybody enjoys the workshop tonight.
All right. Ashley don't do majority of the stuff for us, so that's Ashley on that. Mention everybody. I want to also thank everyone for coming out as well tonight, virtually. I know everybody in different time zones, so thank you very much. But basically, tonight our first workshop will highlight an important factor for success: psychology and mental training. Exercising our mental strength is just as important as our physical strength. Just as if you hit a hurdle, some people don't want to get back up and run, but you know what I mean? Like if your boat capsizes, like Mr. Let some here, he ain't gonna stay in the water, he gonna try to flip the boat back over and go out about the business, you understand? Yes. This workshop is interactive, so please feel free to ask any question at any given moment if you don't understand, or for some reason that you just feel to ask a question, just feel free to ask a question. Our participants probably are muted now. Majority, yes. Basically, yeah, actually. Yeah, all are mute. So, right. To unmute, refer to the button to the left of your screen and click the button labeled unmute. Hey, as I said, everybody, oh no, everybody's still mute, sorry. To raise your hand, click the button on the bottom right of your screen labeled participants. Click on the three small dots and choose raise hand, and then I can unmute you, allowing you to share your comment. We will also leave time for a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So I can just scroll across real quick just to see if anybody raised their hand. Oh yes, Ms. Ottley, Rhonda Ottley, you have a question?
No, that was actually from earlier. My hand was raised to say that I was hearing everyone. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. I thought we had some little interactive thing going on. They just know, but okay. Anyways, we are honored to have with us one of the most sought after sports psychology consultants, Dr. Margaret Ottley. Could you please raise your hand for all the participants for us to see and introduce yourself, Miss Ottley? Yes, let me unmute you real quick. All right, I can. All right, there you go. Yes, let everybody see Miss Ottley. Oh my bad. Yeah.
So I'm Dr. Ottley, sports psychologist, mental performance consultant, and I'm also a professor. Am I doing all the introduction?
No. Again, try mention out half of your accolades. Or half of your accolades. All right, let's get started. Dr. Ottley is a professor of sports and exercise psychology in the exercise science program at Westchester University in Pennsylvania. She is a certified mental performance consultant through the Association for Applied Sports Psychology Association, which is also known as AASP, and was inducted as an AASP fellow by her peers for her contribution to the field of applied sports and performance psychology, especially in the Caribbean. I thought I was done, but we got more. Dr. Ottley recently completed a second master's degree in clinical mental health counseling to meet the changing needs of the athletic population. And we continue still. She's also the founder and chair of Sankofe LLC. Also, we continue with Dr. Ottley. Dr. Ottley was a sports psychology consultant at 4 Olympic Games, 3 with Trinidad and Tobago in 2004, 2012, and 2016. The London 2012 Games being the most medals won by a Trinidad team to date, and in 2008 with the US track and field team. So basically, she want to take credit for their success. But I understand. Cool. I understand. And we continue. In addition, she has also been integral part of the medical team in several Commonwealth and Pan American Games within the last 2 decades. And we continue with Dr. Ottley still. Dr. Ottley traveled as a sports psychology consultant with the Trinidad and Tobago women's soccer and netball team at international competition. She well experienced in that field. And we still have more on Dr. Ottley. She presently provides mental performance services to the USA Track and Field and the NSAF New Balance Outdoor and Indoor Meets, as well as the NSAF Caribbean Scholastic Invitational Meet. I could go on more about Dr. Ottley, but we ain't keep it there for you. Yeah, I understand. So let's all give a round of applause for Miss Ottley, Miss Dr. Ottley, real quick. I know y'all doing it mentally, or and then Dr. Ottley shall go on with her presentation. I see y'all being a little interactive. That's dope. Dr. Ottley, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so very much. I know it was much to read, and that's just like a drop of my resume. I'm a bragger sometimes. Yeah. And one of the reasons why is that I'm a Caribbean woman, born in a tiny little village in Trinidad. So when we, as a Caribbean, as Caribbean people, when we do things out in the wider world, I think it deserves an applause, a round of applause. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but to get this started, what I want to do is to ask you, there's going to be interactive. I am going to ask you to do a few things as I teach mental skills as well, but I'll give you an overview before I get started. So this is what I want you to do, and I forgot to ask Ashley to have you have something to write with. So if you can grab something to write with, that would be great, because I want you to write down, or at least you could send it in your chat. I think I'll be able to follow the chat. So what's the reason why you play? You participate in sports. Just give like one sentence why you love this thing, because that's very significant, and I'll tell you why. The other thing that I want you to do is to think from now, what is your best sport experience or situation that you could ever think about, even if it were, when you were a little kid, and your worst as well. So those are the two things, because I'm going to be teaching some mental skills and I'll ask you for that. So kind of reflect on that right now. So let me get started. I'm trying to find your chat. So you do have some things inside of there. Okay, so I'll get started with my presentation now and I'll share my screen. So give me a thumbs up if you can see what I have. We good? All right. All right, so what I'm trying to do is to get my screen where it's supposed to be. All right. Okay, so here it is. So I've put together a beginning for you so that you can get a very comprehensive idea of what this thing is about, why Sankofa in the first place. This is just a few. So the interesting thing on a personal note about that video is that I had nothing to do with it, really. So I travel a lot with youths, and a parent actually was at the games and she put the video together and sent it to me. So I wanted to share it with you so that you can have an idea what really we do when we go out there and travel with teams. Okay? So here's just some little personal information. So as Kyron indicated, I do travel quite a lot. One of the reasons why I was honored at my association, Sports Psychology Association, was really because of all of the games that I do. And I'm really the only sports psychologist out there to do Commonwealth, Pan American, World Youth, World Juniors. I do those for the US team as well. And also this was 2008 Beijing Olympics, and I also do the NSAF. We go to Cuba quite a lot and being hosted by the Cuban Sports School. So just a little background information. So just an overview of what the sports psychology is and what we're going to be really doing. Sports psychology is really a scientific field. It is evidence-based, and we study some of the practices that athletes would have on the field and also, inside of for the practice, competition, and practice experiences. So our job is to help athletes. It's a very multidisciplinary way we approach it, where we work with coaches and nutritionists and the athletic trainers, exercise physiologists, chiropractors. We have a big medical team when we travel. And this is both with whether I'm traveling with Transvago or with the US team. The medical team is very diverse. So just to give you a little idea of what sports psychology is, or for us as sports psychologists, sometimes you hear the name sports psychologist. Sometimes we are referred to as mental toughness consultant. Sometimes it's psychological skills training. So I'll be talking a lot about psychological skills training because as an educational sports psychologist, what we do, we teach skills. We teach imagery, visualization, attention, self-talk, all of those we actually teach the athletes so that they can do what they do. There are clinical sports psychologists, which would work more with like eating disorders and, a lot of phobias, sometimes substance abuse, which athletes experience as well. So there you would find that there are a lot of clinical psychologists that really travel. And for us, on the UST, we have a mixture of both. And then there are those who just do research, and most of them are professors. I am fortunate to have a background in all three. So why a sports psychologist? Why are you having this right now? It is really important. The more you know is the stronger you become. So I really want to, at this point, really thank all of you for joining this forum. And also I want to thank the BVI for putting this together, the Athletes Commission. You are the second athlete commission that I'm doing something for. The first is really USA Track and Field. Their professional athletes would always have these great, amazing retreats. And I did about 3 of those retreats for them. And usually it's before the year before the Olympic Games in order to prepare mentally or to get these same skills. So what I'm doing with you now is what I will do with them as well, right? Or what I have done with them and continue to do. So we do have a lot of individual one-on-one sessions. We have emotional regulations. We teach them for distress tolerance. They go through a lot of traumatic experiences, especially as we will talk for the big game. We teach skills like attention, concentration, visualization, imagery. Goal setting is extremely important. Confidence, team building. We do cognitive restructuring. I like calling it that, but it's self-talk. Spiritual guidance. I'm huge. I'm quite a spiritualist, and it's a big part of my life. And I realize that for most of my professional athletes, that's an extremely important part of their lives as well. So it makes good conversation. When we go, we meet sometimes right outside. No one has a stigma about, oh, I'm talking to the sports psychologist. So we walk, we talk in whether it's on the buses, we'll talk in cafeteria, anywhere. We will gather together. So I'm usually in the medical room when the athletic trainers and the physiotherapists and they are working. I'm also working with them. And a lot of times, like right now, I have some individual clients and we Zoom or we Skype. Most of the time we Skype because they travel all over. So even though I mentioned the stigma, when we talk about, this consultation, it is a confidentiality arrangement. So it's very important that the athletes know that what they're telling us, because the disclosure, they tell us everything, about themselves and things that they didn't even know about themselves. So confidentiality is always, an important piece. I always ask permission. Knowledge of sports, I always want to know how much you know, how much you know about sports psychology or psychological skills training. So we're always gathering information. I use performance profiles a lot and a lot of informal way when I have the luxury of being with an athlete or a team for a duration of time. Like when I work with the National Scholastic Athletic Foundation, I travel with that team and we spend weekends together. Then I can do some kind of some kind of form like an assessment or survey. I can do things like that. But when I'm at the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games or Pan Am, I don't have the luxury really of doing a, paper, pen, sit down and do these, fill out these things. So I have my own way of doing some formal observations and work with athletes and coaches that way. So assessment is always ongoing. It's during, it's before even the season starts, pre-season, it's during the season, it's post-season. I have athletes who stay with me for a number of years as well. Usually I practice brief interventions, which is usually like 6 to 10. But sometimes I have athletes who will stay with me, as I said, for the whole, and these are my junior athletes and also my senior athletes. They just check in, and they check in once a week. So we have like 50-minute to 1 hour sessions. And wherever they are in the world, they call in, they say, hey, I'm struggling. Sometimes they are competing, they're going through the rungs. My track and field athletes, they're going through rungs, and they're calling me during the rungs. Yeah. And usually, sometimes I don't even know where they are in the world. So that's international is a little different because they're performing under pressure. There's a lot of unknowns, and the mental preparation is a lot of emotional regulation, emotional management, overcoming mental blocks. I tend not to use that term, mental blocks, but it's a popular term that athletes use, so I'm running with it right now. Loss of focus because of all the distractions when you're in home and you're familiar and you're doing really well, and then you end up, and the rest of the world is out there and you're competing with them. It's just an amazing thing. Sometimes you're seeing the superstars out there and the people that you look up to, and you become distracted. At the Olympics, there's a lot of food and a lot of athletes gain weight. I know athletes who gain weight at the Olympics because, if you don't have that structure and that discipline, you could get, you could lose it. It's lose your focus inside of the games. So confidence issues are really big as well. So we work along those lines. All right, things happen. So some of the skills that I teach, I'm a Reiki master, so I teach a lot of energy management. And that really came about in 2008. I was working with, I was in Beijing, and I got sick for about 2 days. I was in quarantine, so I couldn't see the athletes. And I went down that one morning, the next, the morning I was allowed to come out. And one of older coach, he was just there as an observer, and he said, "Hey, I haven't seen you for a few days." And so I told him, I wasn't well and I was in quarantine, and he said, "I'm surprised you are, because you're always you're always smiling. You're such a happy person." And I found that was really strange. And he said, "Happy people don't get sick." And I'm like, really? So before I left, he gave me this little note, and it was written energy medicine. So I looked it up, and when I came back, and I found Reiki, and I've been practicing Reiki ever since. And I do it in my classroom as a professor and everywhere. And athletes think it's pretty cool. I use a lot of cognitive behavioral, thought stopping, thought shifting, and positive thinking. I'm one of the most positive people, How do you become? I felt it was important for you to see this slide. How do you get a sports psychologist? Things that you look for. There are quite a lot of us who practice with a master's degree and PhDs in exercise, sport, and performance psychology. We actually just started one at my university, so I have master's students that I'm mentoring presently. A licensed psychologist who is trained in sports psychology as well, and certified with the certifying body is the Association for Applied Sports Psychology. So, and now we are called CMPC, which is Certified Mental Performance Consultant. But one of the things I think is most important is really that background and expertise and the rapport. If you, a sports psychologist could be very, very qualified, but if they don't know how to connect to athletes, then athletes would not see them. Right? For me, I understand sports. I played field hockey. Field hockey was my international sport. I played for Trinidad and Tobago all through the ranks from schoolgirls straight to senior team. One of the reasons why I got into this field really was because I felt like I never played my best game. We were doing so well. We were always doing well when we play in the region, and we will clash with Jamaica and Barbados, and we will do really, really good. We would dominate it a lot of times, and didn't handle losing very well. But when we were playing against countries like Germany or Scotland, or Wales, America, then we were slaughtered. And I couldn't understand why. I couldn't understand being so young and there was no one to explain it to us. No one to explain, that we couldn't compete at that level. But it wasn't only from a physical perspective, it's that we assumed that because we were playing with these international athletes, that they were automatically better than us. And it's a mindset that wasn't even a conscious mindset. It was a mindset that these people look at how they look, just from how they carry themselves and how they were dressed. So I got into the field just to look a little closely at that and to help, athletes to go over that hurdle. And I felt that my coaches didn't know how to get me to that other level. So I started working a lot with coaches as well. So that's a little genesis. So one of the problem is, and I know Kyron kind of chuckled when he said, that I take credit for 2012. It's not that I take credit for 2012. I'm not being defensive, but there's some facts that I'll explain. Is that 3 years before the Olympics, London Olympics, I was commissioned by the Trinidad and Tobago government to have a national program in sports psychology at a time when people said it will never work because Caribbean athletes are not interested in the mental health and the mental aspect of sport. We are, you just go get them. Come on, you can do it, and give them some pep talks, and they will go out there because they're natural fighters. That was the extent of sports psychology. So I decided to really do a baseline study with coaches and athletes to see how much do you really know about the mental aspect, and are you open to working with? Because a lot of times we assume that people are open to because we know so much and we want to do, we want to give back and help athletes to win medals. But how do we really know how receptive they are? So the beginning of that 3-year program, in fact, we had 2 3-year programs. And when I say we, I meant Sankofa. I will bring in sports psychologists from all over, the US and people from all over the world, coaches, and they would be a part of, and we will talk, and the people came. So were they comfortable dealing with their sports, person's needs? So most of them said they're pretty comfortable. So the next question was, do you know enough about sports psychology? And most of them would say, answered no. And as far as how important it is, they know philosophically that there must be something about it for it to be a field. So they said they know that it was important. And are you interested in working with a sports psychologist? And they all said yes. we got absolutely 100%. And they followed us. So the problem that we were helping with was really things from the personal, that fear factor, because of our number one fear that we have really is a fear of failure. A lot of people, have different, fear of snakes and fear of spiders and all of these, but it's fear of failure. And so I talked to them about the HPA axis. I talked to them about fight, flight, or freeze. I have athletes at the Olympics who would say, I'm in the blocks and I can't feel my legs. They got so scared that they cannot even run. And people are watching them and laughing and saying, oh, they're so temperamental. Look, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes they clean it up, the medals, first place, and then at another time they can't. But it was the pressure of the Olympics that caught the athlete, and didn't have the coping mechanism to push through and to have that great performance and use his talents the way he would usually use it in less significant competitions. So we talk about things like that. Yeah, the role of cortisol in the body, and how the brain interprets information, and how it sends information, and I go very, because I teach motor learning, and I also look at brain-body relationship quite a lot. So I take it from a physiological perspective and talk about the feel-good hormones and those that would excite and overexcite the body. So, and when I say the HPA axis, I meant the hypothalamus relationship with the pituitary gland that will trigger the adrenal glands, those two little glands right on top of the kidneys, because those are really important, because they release cortisol and adrenaline into the system, straight into the bloodstream. So you could be like doing fine, probably had a good night's sleep, or it probably was being excited since before, so you couldn't sleep the night before, the big competition. And you just can't focus and just can't settle yourself because they don't have the mental skills to do it, right? But that's cortisol is going to go in the system and really and the adrenaline before it's ready to be released. So it's being released the night before. So you're so excited that you just can't settle down. So we work on the condition of the mind as well. And we look at behavioral patterns and thought patterns. And I like telling athletes that thoughts are like children. The more, they want to play, and the more you push them away, the more they will come. So that's why I usually say, I don't say block out things. Because the more you try to block them, they will come. So it's deeper than that, right? So thoughts, so we look at the behavioral patterns, and then we can do something about it. And then there's the social part. So some of this is just a little tip for you out there. So one of the things that we do when we're preparing for international competition is that some athletes actually shut down their social media. Some of them just limit it. So when I'm working for a long time with athletes, we always talk about a small inner circle. And know who is in your inner circle and who you would need. I've been at the Olympics, and some parent, a parent, well-meaning, will call and say, oh, your dog just died. And it's like, athlete totally lost it, right? So you have to teach your social system how to be supportive. And that's extremely significant. When I'm working with teams, it's a lot of interpersonal relationship, coach-player relationship, athlete-athlete relationship, athlete-parent relationship. It's a whole lot that they're always dealing with, and faulty group processing. So we sit in groups, and disclosure is a big thing. So we talk and we get to know each other, and we get to know each other's strengths and their weaknesses. You know, I had a big discussion with one of my favorite coaches, and he's a 1996 gold medalist, triple jumper, Kenny Harrison. And he was talking, it was interesting. I was talking about challenges that to some young athletes, and he talked with them as well, and he was talking about weaknesses. And I had to think about it, and I you know, and I'm more into the task. Yeah, so my motto is to usually strengthen the strengths. Strengthen the strengths. I like athletes to focus on the strengths. I say, if you focus on the strengths, you will see how easy it is that the weaknesses will get better. Just to get them out of their heads. Focus on what you're good at. You know, and he was saying, know what your weaknesses are. But philosophically, we were coming from two different perspectives, because I was looking at task and attitude, but he was looking at the body, you know, and what the body, when the body is weak, you know, you have to identify it. And it's almost like an acceptance. And we call, in clinical mental health, we use terms like radical acceptance. Yes, this is something I'm not good at, so I am going to find resources to help me to build this, because it keeps you knowing your weaknesses. After I thought about it, you know, and I haven't told him this conversation that happened in my head, but he was right, you know, not that I was wrong, but he was right. That the body, you know, when you know your weaknesses and you have this, it gives you a thirst. It makes you hungry. And athletes need to be hungry. If you want to get to the podium and the highest stages, you got to be hungry. You got to know where all those errors and those weaknesses, and the weaknesses are not only from a physical perspective, it is our doubts that we had since we were children, you know, it could pop up anywhere, you know, some being in grade school, you know, and a teacher told you to read in front of the class and you didn't do a good job and they laughed at you, and that insecurity would stay with you, and you don't know where it's coming from. All you know is that you don't want to fail in front of people. But that could have started from since you were probably 6. So we go inside of that, and the more they know is the more they have a drive and a motivation, and that motivation comes from within, because the whole concept of motivation is mastery, that drive and that intensity, so that you can master and dominate, use your skill that you were born with. You're doing something as athletes that the rest of the world really cannot do, or even want to do, but they like seeing you doing it, so they could come and watch you do your thing. So it's about you mastering, and it's a discipline. And this time in our, you know, right now we get a time to rest and to reflect. This is the time that you listen to different information that is coming to you, and be hungry for it. Because this is the time that you learn to meditate. This is the time that you learn to deal with all of the, you know, the thoughts, the negative thinking, or the self-defeating thoughts that you have inside of there, and restructure them. Because it's a pattern that you have to develop if you want to be successful. So when I was growing up, they were talking about natural talent. Yeah, natural talent, as you know, could only take you so far. I have seen at World Youth, great athletes doing amazing things, and I'm like, wow, they're so young, and everybody's like, wow, they're gonna be amazing. And then the next couple of years, when they should be in probably NCAA in college running, and you don't hear about them. It's like, where did they go to? Right? They just disappear from the field. So natural talent is not just, it's not good enough. It could only take you so far. The ones that you need is to strengthen the mind. It's to know where your weaknesses are so you could be hungry, that you could be thirsty, that you could have that drive, that you could work and work to become competent into mastery and know your bodies. Are you still with me? Tell me if you're there. Give me a thumbs up if you're still with me. Ah.
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay, I'm checking you there because I know you're in England. So I'm on a roll right now. All right, just to give you some insight before we start really talking, because then you would know what to ask, you know, in the conversation. So there's a philosophy inside of the mix. And I'm talking to Caribbean people, you know, so you got to know who you are. So our approach for intervention, psychological skills intervention, would be, you know, sometimes it is multidisciplinary. It is about, you know, athletes and the sports psychologist relationship, athletes and sports psychologists and coaches. I always tell people most of what I know about sports psychology, I learned from coaches. Coaches are the real sports psychologists out there. So I never work with an athlete if I don't know about the coach or even meet the coach. I always ask, what are you working on? Because I always need to be in sync. I am part of, once I come in, I am part of the whole process. I want to know what your nutrition looks like. I want to know what's your sleeping pattern. I want to know, you know, who is your significant other in your life? What that relationship is. Whose voice you hear when you go out in the arena and you're all by yourself when you travel, whose voice you hear that will pick you up if you didn't do as well as you thought you should. Most of my athletes would say their mothers. Some would say fathers. I want to know. So we use cognitive behavioral, very person-centered. My athletes talk with me and they drive. I am not the one who is doing the talking. This is the most time because I'm doing this is a lecture start, beginning, but it's very person-centered. You tell me what's going on. This is your life. And I do practice existentialism, which is about purpose and meaning. And everyone has purpose and meaning. And some are still looking for it, but that's okay. So I always ask, why are you seeing me? Why do you want to talk with me? What's your goal? Because if they can tell me what they would like to do, even if they don't see it's possible, I could help. I do brief solutions, so I'm not into, oh, I need to see you for a year or 2 years. Nope. We could do, brief is usually like 6 to 10, some would say 6 to 12. Some just like one, they just did a checkup, just call in for a checkup. That's it. And I sometimes don't hear from them until maybe a month later, 2 months later. Mindfulness is huge, being in the present. And I always talk about Sankofa. And the reason why I say Sankofa is because Sankofa is a bird. It's the only bird in the world that has the ability to turn its head 360 degrees. Bird from Ghana. And the saying that goes with it is to know where you're going, you got to know where you came from. Go back and fetch. So that's the reason why I go with Sankofa. So choose your inner circle. Know where your resources are and make them accountable for just the whole opportunity to be in your inner circle. And you have to teach your inner circle. They must be committed to you, like most parents are, and coaches are. I love coaches. Communication. Social media is a big part. Some athletes, they get bullied. And sometimes they didn't do well in the first round, but they made the second round. So people would say all sorts of things on social media, and they read it and they get so down. And now they have to go run to try to make the final. Concentration. We'll talk a little bit about concentration and perceived control. This is one of my favorite athletes. Recently deceased. Table tennis player. He's our only Olympian table tennis player. And we talked about small island mentality. And I wondered if that really exists. But I understand where it comes from, because that's how I felt when I was playing field hockey and we were playing against the bigger countries, as we would put it. And he said in one of our talks, and it was good that he talked about it in a newspaper interview, because he said, it's like when you leave and you don't have a support system. We know where it's coming from? Okay. I'll continue. So the small island mentality is really about seeing people from different places. And he said, he judged them because, how they look, and they have sponsors, and he had his little regular racket, and then he would watch them play and realize he could beat them. But it took him a long time to get to that place. And after that, it was like realizing, hey, I got skills. You got skills, and we're going to have a conversation on the table tennis board. And that was his attitude. All right, so interventions. So this is performance anxiety, and I want you to kind of think about this just a little bit, all right? And probably you can get like a chat inside of it. So we have a 400-meter runner who does well at practice, and but at competitions, don't do really well. The coach knows that he has the talent, but he runs his worst. So, Ashley, you think we can have a little conversation here? What do you know about anxiety? And how can you help someone?
Answer?
What's that?
You said you wanted me to answer?
No, can we, a general conversation? I'm going to start.
Yeah.
This section is now the intervention. So I'm going to ask some very specific things and do some activities. I just took it down for a little bit. So I just
Mr. Archer raised his hand. Would you like to be, you're unmuted, Mr. Archer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, well, I haven't been involved in athletics that much myself, aside from running track in high school and probably a couple martial arts tournament. But for one of my first competition with my athletes as a coach, when we train with amongst ourselves. We have tournament is just amongst ourselves, and at our first competition, when I look down the line, it seemed like you know, the Hispanics and the Caucasians, and they're like, I never seen so much white people in my life. I like, listen, they breed just like you, they dress just like you, the blood red just like yours. I mean, so it's it's that new environment. It's um it's just kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
So what our sport actually did is they have like a development tournament. So it give them the tournament experience without all the pressures of the international competitions, which I think is great. We were supposed to actually be hosting one, I think this month, but because of the C19, we had to postpone.
Yeah. No, it's you're right on point. You have to start really from a very early age in order to prepare them to get them that kind of confidence. Yeah. And interestingly, you have on the chat, afraid white people. And that's what Dexter St. Louis was talking about,
But that's exactly what the kids say. You know, I've never seen so many white people in my life. You know, I mean,
It's overwhelming.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the thing is that, it's people that usually ask me, how do you feel? I mean, how is it different traveling when you're traveling with the Caribbean teams versus when you're traveling with American teams? And it's really, I just have one set answer for that. I'm like, there's no way, and that was my focus in 2012, because I had the elite athletes contract too for 3 years, and the thing is exactly what you said. It's they walk just like you, they eat the same foods, so you have to have that attitude. But the thing is, what makes it different is that they tend to know. My youths, when I do world youths or world juniors with the US team, even when I travel with the National Scholastic Athletic Foundation, the youths walk differently. They walk with their shoulders back and their chest high. It's not that they're even better, because I think we are highly skilled from the Caribbean. We have so much talent, but they just wear it better. And someone said once that 80% of sports is intimidation. So
Yes.
we're intimidated automatically. They in our heads. Someone wrote that they were playing tennis. They wrote of this tennis player who was down, and during the break, she went, just talked to the opponent and said, you have a really good forehand serve. And just by saying that, she ended up winning the game. How did she win it? It was because if you tell someone, that, oh, I love your forehand, they start focusing on that. And because it's like that pink elephant in the room, think of it, Jennifer. So now that becomes a main thing, and then you lose focus of the whole game. For us, we focus on that one thing, and then we can't function because that thing becomes so big, it's overwhelming. Oh my gosh, look at all these white folks. Oh my God. So the American athletes, they walk differently. They walk showing that they're confident. People say act confidently. They know how to do that. And they were taught to do that from a very early age. Good point. Any other? Questions at this point? I'm reading the chat. Nice feedback. Kyron, I'm sorry.
Could I just say something?
Yes.
I've been coaching for over 15 years in soccer. I have my own soccer academy in the BVI.
Nice.
Maybe the only soccer academy in the BVI. I started 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have come to realize locally, that a lot of our youngsters, because of not being exposed from a sporting point of view, not being exposed to high levels of play, they tend to become intimidated very easily.
Yeah.
I made the national team after 8 months of just playing soccer as a goalkeeper. And we played in St. Kitts, and I always tell them, I said, the biggest stage is where you really prove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get yourself mentally prepared to go to that big stage, it's all about having fun. So I took this team on the 12th team to St. Thomas the first year. We just started practicing about 4 6 months. And we played against the under 15 team. And the uniforms that we were wearing, I had bought for them. I think it was green and gold.
What?
So the other team started calling them Subway. That were the colors of Subway. So my guys really got upset, and they started putting their heads down. Mm-hmm. So I said to them, and it's amazing how coaches could make a difference on the field. Oh, yeah. I looked at them, I said, guys, listen, it's very simple. They're calling you Subway. Do me this favor. You beat them today, and you will be telling them, we just ate your sandwiches. And all of them started laughing about it. It was just a way of getting them relaxed and getting them. They actually beat the under 15 team, 11, 12-year-old players. We beat them 3-0. Yeah. So it just goes to show that even in situations of intimidation, you gotta find a way as a coach to build that spirit back up for them to continue playing. And it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, you sound, one of my favorite coaches is a bit like John Chaney, the Temple basketball coach. And I would shadow him. I learned so much from him. And he had this quote that he would always tell his athletes. In fact, to this day, it's written in their stadium. Winning is an attitude. Yeah, you gotta have an attitude. You gotta walk it. You gotta, you gotta, in your whole being, that's part of the thirst and the hunger that you have. It is not, and he will tell them, he said, he cannot recruit the best athletes. They go to other bigger schools. He said, but you guys, he would talk to them and say, but you guys, we all have the same issues. We all have father issues, we have, we grew up in low socioeconomic communities. We want to build this big house for our mothers. That's always the athlete's dream. He said, but you know what? You have all of these issues that you grew up with, but right now I'm giving you an opportunity. And the opportunity is for you to get an education and to play ball. That could take you to another place. And he said, you're not doing any kind of basket weaving as your major. You're doing finance and business because you got to learn how to count your money. So that coach put it in their heads, that you are not a victim of society. You are coming out here with an opportunity, with resources, and he had tutors for his guys. He had, he found people who were willing to volunteer, to help. And it was really difficult to beat Temple if you are like the last 2 minutes and you haven't beaten them as yet. Because if you're a draw, everybody knows that Temple will beat you because of how, his strategies. And his guys, he made sure in tight situations, and he would play those type situations. He would say, okay, it's 2 minutes. We only have 2 minutes, and we're 4 points down, or we are 3 points down. What are you going to do? And he'll, from different sides of the court. And so he simulated these pressured situations and ran it through and let them work it out. Yeah. So the most we could do is if we don't have the resources, one thing we can do, we might not have the best sneakers and the, best cleats and stuff and uniforms, but we could have the best winning attitude. No one can take that away from us. So coaches always know, hey, listen, these are situations that we're going to face. So I'm not going to let them travel to face it so that now they can learn a lesson. They make it like, this is your home right now. You're going to see it. You're going to meet this. So let's start working on this. You're going to meet this. So what? Right? So that's why we love coaches who read and who travel and who, you know, expand themselves. Because for too often I have seen athletes who travel, they do in NCAA, they're traveling, being influenced by other systems, and then they come back in on the islands and they know more than the coaches. That's not supposed to happen, right? Coaches need to be involved. You need to know what the new science is. You need to read good journals because you're preparing them for whatever is out there. Yeah, that's why I love coaches. We had is that okay? Was that? We had a raised hand. And who is it? I tried to memorize it, but I forgot. I have a question. You mentioned earlier that you don't use the mental block. Why? Why is that? All right, so this is from
Alian.
Alian. Yeah, I don't use the term mental block because as I was saying with children, if you start believing that something is blocking you, is because you just don't understand it. So you try to understand that every problem there is, there are several solutions. So sometimes if athletes are not trained to know that every problem could be solved in some way or the other, or you could find people who can help you solve it, then they stay inside of the problem and keep like a beat to a light, you know, just going to that light and getting zzz, 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 next thing you see them upside down, right? It's just mean that you have to pivot and find some other way to go or to solve the problem. So blocks is too finite in such an amazing world. I really am in this field because I believe in athletes. And I believe coach tells me this athlete has potential, I'm running with that. I don't even ask. I'm going with that. If an athlete tells me I want to get to the podium, that's all they need to tell me. I'm going with that. And there are no blocks. Block is a faulty processing that we have. So it's a cognitive issue that causes a particular behavior. It's a cognitive issue, something that we tell ourselves. And because we tell ourselves it, we think it's a fact and the body reacts like if it's a fact. So if you say, oh, you know what, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, then you pull that energy. You will not be good at it, or you will be mediocre at it. And you could beat certain people, but when it comes to the hard test, you can't.
Mr. Penn has a question. I think it's for you. I'm not sure. Mr. Ephraim Penn. So I'm muting.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. I'm just thinking now that we are in an environment where quite a number of athletic events have been canceled, and what is the mindset that you would give to the athletes now to prepare themselves, stay focused, and still maintain that edge so that when the season starts, that they're ready to go?
Good question. Thanks. So I'm going to share my screen again, okay? And see if I can answer it with the screen. All right?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go back. So I sketch a lot. I just sketch. So so right now this is really, I like just drawing things, you know, the information that we put in our brains, this false beliefs that we have, like we can't do something, or we don't have the resources, we don't have good coaches, we don't have enough money, we don't have the right nutrition. In a place where we grew up with some of the most nutritious foods that we find, we still think that we need these special things for like other athletes. So we create our own blocks. And then when the blocks become a thing, we think it comes from somewhere else, but it comes from within, because it's about how you perceive things, right? So by saying about deficit, so I always go with, you're talking about deficit when you're saying I have a block, but really you live in a world of abundance, and it doesn't matter where you are. Right, so what it will do is it creates you out of control, and you become very overwhelmed. And this is really the science of choking, right? When things become overwhelmed and you don't have the coping mechanisms, then. So I'll get to the question, but I just wanted to finish to at least do this slide. So I have some young athletes that I just did something like this with. And they're all stuck. They're stuck at home, and it's really about helping them to get a routine. So that's one of the main things. Teach them some tools. Fortunately, I've been working with these athletes, so they know how. If I say, okay, let's do, just some focus things right now, then they know exactly what to do. So it's now planning. What do you do when you get up in the morning? What is your pattern? And you work through a pattern, and you try to do it every day. So some will tell me, hey, listen, I'm supposed to be in school, but I'm not in school. So I get up later. What time do you get up? I get up like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because I have nothing to do. I'm bored. I'm like, yes, but are you still an athlete? Are you still competing? How much do you want this? Because you have to train your body to do the same kinds of things. So whether they're hurdlers, and I was like, hey, do you have like objects that you could step over and try, and teach your body? Because it's about motor programs. The brain creates motor programs. Everything that you do, the brain likes patterns. And the brain will remember the patterns. It's like teaching form, right? So when you have to do it over and over and over, and you know that the most challenging thing is if you have to unlearn a form. Like there wasn't a really good coach, and now that athlete comes to you, and you're seeing all these things that you have to adjust. I gotta say fix, but adjust. And it takes them a long time to do it, because the brain likes patterns. It likes to do things over and over and over, and it will remember. So you have to put structure in your day presently, right? You got to be able to take back the control. So, and start thinking of where you want to go. If you know that, all right, the Olympics is now next year, I have athletes already starting to call me to prepare for next year. And they're just checking right now. But I know by the fall, if we do get a next spring season, which is the beginning of the year, if we get that, then we know that, all right, I practice this. I have had this in the back of my mind, in the forefront of my mind. I have been doing, all these motions. I've heard people like Maurice Green talk about, he's like, I'm always in a sprinting mode. I go to the grocery, I'm moving my hands. Somebody's in front of me while we're walking down the street, I want to walk faster than that. You gotta put yourself in that mode every day, and put aside time where you do the mental work. So I'll talk a little bit about imagery, and I have a slide for it as well. So this is what, right now, a lot of athletes are being aware of, emotional regulation, because it is, someone just called me and is struggling, they're really, really struggling with emotional regulation, that it's causing a deep sadness. I'm using the word sadness, that it can't get out of. Right? And it's causing them to stay in bed longer, and can't function with the day-to-day life. So it's about now learning some skills and strategies to give yourself structure and make it very deliberate. And sometimes little things like, opposite actions. So if you don't feel like, you do the opposite to it. So you have to have clear goals, but you got to get back inside of that control, right? I'm in control, and you feel that same, but instead of saying things negative like, oh, I can't, or oh, this is so hard, you say, I know my stuff. This is just a challenge. So even with my young athletes, I'm like, okay, so now is the time during this lockdown that we have to know, what are your challenges that you usually have? Okay, so when I'm in competition, or and the competition is getting more intense, how do I see that? Do I see it as, oh my gosh, it's a big match and no, we have to win, or do we see it as, oh, it's a challenge. This is a challenge. So you change the talk in your head because it's a challenge. Life has challenges. So you see competition as challenge, and now it's time to practice doing that, right? So, okay, so you bring the best of who you are. I talk about Michael Jordan a lot because he's like, yeah, even in scrimmage, I will play you like I'm in the NBA, because that he was always in that presence. Does that make any sense? So now is the best time to start looking at structure. So this slide is on goal setting, and it's on writing goals. And people tend to, if I ask most of my athletes who just started, they will say, you know what? I want to get to the podium. I want to be an Olympian, or I want to run and, or play, and we have football players, who would want to win the local competition. Those are outcomes. To win a medal, it's very general. And that is fine, because that's what you want to shoot from. But now that you have that, what do you do, right? So now is the time for you to look at performance. Okay, well, I want to be able to work on this. Those are now performance things. So you must, out of those outcome goals, you must have performance goals. But my favorite for the athletes, and that's why I like working with coaches, when I work with, athletes who have like Cuban coaches, Cubans, they work with their sports psychologists. It's the most amazing thing. They believe in sports psychology. So the Cuban coaches will call me and say, oh, he's just struggling with this. I'm trying to get him to get this form. And I will say, what does that form look like? He's like, yeah, I need him to do this and do that. Perfect for me. So now I'm like, I know what the form looks like. I could meet with the athletes and say, what is the form that you're trying to work with a coach? And the athlete will spell it out in the most ideal way. And I will say, okay, sit quietly. Let's do a mental rehearsal. Let's practice this with an imagery in your mind and run through it. So they give me the script and I can do a guided imagery. Okay, this is how, so you're running along the field, this happens and this is what you do. So this is the time that you use those skills, right? concentration. And I just want you guys to just kind of, and engage with me just a little bit on this. I'm actually going to do a practical. So I'm going to take my screen down. All right, so we have a number of you out there, and I want you to see, get a tool of what mental imagery, how concentrations would look like, how quiet in your mind, what it would look like. So is that okay? Can I run it? Do I still have some time to run this? Yeah. All right, so just kind of take a deep breath. All I want you to do is, this is your solar plexus right there right under your ribs, right? I always breathe inside of that area, because when athletes have little panics and performance anxiety, their breathing gets really short and it's just in their chest. So you have to learn to breathe naturally and normally. And now it's a good time to learn how to breathe, right? Now, everyone has the ability to do a perfect mental imagery. And you can tell me whether you can or not, but I'm saying that everybody does. So I just want you to sit with your, wherever you are, sit at your back straight and take a deep breath, exhale, blow it out. And just kind of do it like 3 times, right? Take a deep breath, blow it out. But let that breath go all the way down inside of your solar plexus, right? Down and right under your rib cage. Because that's what deep breathing is. That's what's responsible for power. So I always tell athletes, that's where confidence is. You feel butterflies in your stomach, that's the area. You gotta strengthen that. People always talk about the core from a physical perspective. Well, that's the second brain, we call it in mental health, right? It's that area. So I want you to the color and energy medicine they're associated with it is yellow, because it has an opposite. So people usually say, oh, you're yellow, meaning that you're coward. But it's also power on the opposite side. You could choose which one you want to, think of. But power, I always say power is your birthright. So all I want you to do is just kind of relax just a little bit and find a focal point. Just somewhere that you can focus. In fact, you can use a pencil, or you can use your finger, and just look at it. Just look at it. And focus on your breathing, but look at the object. Focal point. So you are limiting the stimuli that's going to your brain right now. Stop looking at it, open it up, look somewhere else, look to the right, look to the left, go back to your focal point. That is what you call attentional shifting. You should be able, your brain does this without you noticing. You're trying to focus on something and then you start thinking about other things. You take back the control. Break the focus, look somewhere else. How I relate this? This is how you walk into an arena, right? One athlete who knows this really, really well is Bolt. People think that Bolt was just acting, doing, entertaining the crowd, but no. When you walk into an arena, it must be very deliberate. You must know everything that's around you, where the entrances are, where the photographers are, what's happening besides, what you're supposed to be seeing. For my track athletes or for the Olympics, on a track, you have a whole lot of things going on. If there are any field, there are field events, people here as well, that you could be throwing the javelin and somebody, and the distance runners are running around the track. You're always being distracted. So you're taking everything. We call that broad external. But we also have narrow external, where now you're dressing down. So my athletes, they walk into an arena, they check, they know, hi, mom, hi. They know where their coach is sitting. But now they have to narrow that focus to not so many people and the crowd to what the business is at hand. Very deliberate. This is not time to cut up with your friends and joke and all of that. This is business time. Your parents are no longer relevant. All of significant people, you know, you blow your kisses and all of that, fine. But when you're ready, you switch that focus, and that's deliberate. I'll ask you, close your eyes. Just close your eyes. Close your eyes. And I'll ask you now to think of anywhere that a kitchen with the refrigerator. There's a countertop right next to it. Just follow me on this. Open the refrigerator, you will see a lemon or a lime. Take out the lime, put it on the countertop. Right next to it, there's a little knife. Cut the lemon or lime in two. Take up 1/2 of it, and I want you to take it slowly, just between your thumb and your index fingers, and bring it slowly to your mouth, and squeeze that lemon juice or lime juice on your tongue. Swirl around the juices, let it hit the back of your throat. Squeeze a little more. Put the lemon down. You're right back in this space. What was the experience? Can someone share the experience?
My mouth running water.
What's that?
My mouth ran water, like almost like I was drooling.
Yeah. Ashley, what was yours?
I tasted the bitterness on the back of my, as you said, to go, let it go down your throat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the power of suggestion. And it also means that if you could feel that, that's mental imagery. You could actually, did you see, what did you use, a lime or lemon?
I use a lemon.
Did you see the color?
Yeah, it was yellow.
Yeah. That's what mental imagery looks like. When you're at home during this lockdown, just play around with it. Teach your mind to go wherever you want it to go. Mental imagery is different from visualizing. Visualizing, you're just seeing yourself like you're on TV, you're watching, and athletes. It's a good skill for some athletes, for athletes, for all athletes. But mental imagery, everything gets involved. Your taste, I went through, I told you it, and I could feel it all down the side of my jaw. I can, it's my salivary gland was just activated. Just by the power of suggestion. There was no lemon that you could physically see. All I asked you to do was think of it, and you had a physiological reaction. That's how powerful mental imagery is. Whether your sport is soccer, whether it's track, swimming, boxing, these are things. Mike Tyson said he will think of his opponent and he will see his fist going through the opponent's face and coming out from the back of his head. Mental imagery. Michael Jordan said he used it 15 minutes before the game. Nobody can talk to him. And he saw everything that could possibly happen on the court. He said by the time he went on the court, he had seen every play. For somebody to come with something different, it was just an amazing challenge. Power of the mind. The more powerful, the more you know that you're capable of doing certain things, is the more confident you become. Because you know things. You are running, you are coming up to compete against people who work on their mental health and their mental skills. And you're walking right into it without understanding that they have already dominated. This is the time to start practicing the mental skills. So I'm gonna close. So this is what, if you guys gonna see that I'll give you the slides. So this is what it looks like. I can do broad to narrow, focus on something wide and external, like you can see the crowd or you can see the field. You can go into narrow external, which you are now focusing on a particular thing, on dressing to get ready to go out, putting on your cleats. It could be narrow, broad internal, where you're just thinking of your game plan. Or it could be narrow internal, just focusing on your breathing. This is time in this lockdown. This is what you do to work with attention, concentration, and your imagery visualization. And make it sport specific, or sometimes you make it, you can do other things as well, right? So I just gave you a little bit on mental imagery, internal, external. If you could see it, it must have controllability, vividness. When I'm working with my hurdlers, I have them from the time they hear that gun and they, and this is like the 400-meter hurdlers, going over it. If they're struggling on the 7th hurdle where they're changing their legs, I have them in slow motion, going over it, checking their form over the hurdle and how they land and the steps they would take, practicing through mental imagery. That is how purpose and how we make it. Right now, performing under pressure, there'll always be pressure because that's the Olympic motto. That's what you do. But the pressure, see it as just challenges and use the mental skills in order to do them. Right? So do you have any time for questions? No more?
I didn't know you finished. Sorry. We have a few questions, actually, like 2 of them in the chat box, and then we could go to the questions that some people submitted on the re-entry.
Okay.
Sophia said, I would like to hear a bit from each. I would like to hear a bit from each from the elite athletes to share their reaction the first time they competed at regional games like Carifta Games and compare it to their first appearance at a major game like the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics. What do they wish they knew then that they knew now when it comes to being prepared to focus on the actual race?
Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that's a really good question. Biggs, Elja, would you like to take this question? No, no, if Elja could hear me. Okay, Ashley, Chantel, Taisha, you have some athletes. Yeah, Chance, let's go.
I mean, I feel like for me, when we talk about Carifta Games, I went to Carifta, was it 12, 13, and I was competing against under 17 girls. But I feel like my mindset when I was at that age was always, I didn't really care about the age. I just went out there and tried to do my best. And then I feel like when I went to college and I went to World Juniors, there was more of a shift because it's like, I feel like I applied more pressure to myself versus to keeping it simple like I would when I was going to Carifta and stuff like that. And now that I'm on the next stage where we go to Olympics and World Champs and Commonwealth Games and stuff like that, I've learned that the best way to approach it is to think, well, it's just another competition. Don't matter if it's Olympic Games or it's World Champs. Yes, we want to understand that it's a big competition, but at the same time, you don't want to psych yourself out to the point where you kind of add additional pressure to yourself. And I think that's where I am right now, just trying to level myself and keep it simple versus trying to get too caught up in the hype of the games or the meet. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, it sounds like something that Serena Williams said. Because they asked her, "Oh, so you're in the quarterfinals. So what are you gonna do when you make the finals?" And she said, "What do you mean? I only have one more match to play.
Yeah. So I think
match to play is the next one. That's it."
Yeah. But I think sometimes it's hard to it's hard or difficult to put yourself in that mind frame, to be honest, especially if you get caught up with all the other stuff happening. Like you said, like at the games or championships, there's so much happening around you. And if you get caught up in it, you could kind of lose or start worrying about other people versus just staying in your lane.
Yeah.
So in terms of mental training, I think this is definitely a tool that every athlete could benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Eldred? What's your views on the question? You need me to repeat the question?
Yeah, go ahead. Repeat the question, Kairon.
Comparing character games to your big major track meets, such as Commonwealth Games, what's the experience has been like, basically? And one knowledge you wish you had knew as a grown person from back then, basically. Yeah.
My first character games were actually my first and last, so that one they were kind of a hit and a miss, but it was my first international meet in a sense. So like I was my second international meet, but I was nervous because like I never competed on that stage before. You know, like you're at home, we don't have many people doing the throws to say that there were guys ahead of me to look up to. You know, so like when you get out there, like the doctor was saying, the butterfly feelings in your stomach, like that's what we're feeling. But like she said though, having that circle, that support system, and that there for me at the time with my coach, well, man, you know what I mean? He can't see how we're getting nervous and be like, yo, calm down, let me do this, you know? And to compare it to Worlds or Commonwealth Games or the Olympics, like it was a whole different level, because then like when you go to the games, you're there for about 2.5, 3 weeks at a time. So it's like you used to just competing on a weekend and then dipping, but now you have to stay mentally checked for almost 2-3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like that could take a toll on you mentally if you don't know how to deal with it. You know? Yeah. So now what I started seeing that working for me now is that before I used to try to predict what I going to do or estimate, or when anybody asks how you feeling, and I'll be like, well, I'm feeling good, I think I could do this, this, and that, and then, you know, the performance ain't go the way you want to, because then put too much pressure on yourself. So I just started going to the competition saying, whatever happened on the day, when I warm up and I get in the ring, I'll see what happened, you know, and from there, it take a lot more stress off of me, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't putting that much weight on myself going to the ring. And I just had to realize that, man, all these people we competing against, they bleed just like us. So why should we hold them on a higher standard than we hold it ourselves?
That's beautiful. That's the attitude. That's what it is. I remember in 2012 when Keyshawn Walcott won that gold medal. He shocked everybody else because he was supposed to be from this little tiny country that people didn't even know about. And then he going up against the Finns, you know, and the Germans and all of them. And I watched him through the process, and he was just having fun. He was just like, you know, and was very focused. he was going through some health issues, and I had the Kishon slide, and I just went through it. But he's one who gave me. He's like, if you put my name out there, you know, I want people to know that I support sports psychology, you know. But he was, you know, we had some great conversations. And then, you know, after 2012, people said it was a fluke. I mean, he got bullied for real on social media. He went through a growth spurt, and people are like, and then 2016, he went back. By age 23, you have 2 Olympic medals. Not bad, right? You know? And it's all because he shut down everybody. It was like, nope, I don't want to hear everybody's opinion. Nope, I'm just going to focus on this. I'm going to go out there and have fun. And it was always one throw at a time. Just one throw at a time, you know? And in between, found something to distract himself, and just wait until it's his turn, got up and do it. So yeah, we overthink.
We have a next question from Coach Steve. Eldred, you could pick this one up same way because apparently they love your answers. So, as a former athlete and now coach, I've grown to understand that a byproduct of ill preparedness is fear during competition. How does an athlete overcome this while the underlying factor of ill preparedness exists? So basically, yeah, you understand, right?
Who's?
Oh, that's for Eldred.
Oh, okay.
You reading over. Oh, so my reading wasn't good enough for you. Understand? Hold on, you mute, big guy. Hold on. You unmute yourself. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was saying you're breaking up, so I wasn't really hearing what you were saying, so I was going to open the chat to read it myself.
You want a question right up over?
You reading it.
No, I understand what Coach Steve's saying. Like, if you ain't prepared,
how do you go there and
before you put a meet, you basically defeat yourself before you even get there. Like I always have this motto that I try to keep in mind. Like, for certain meets, like if I don't qualify, I don't feel right going. And like the biggest one for me personally was the Olympics in 2016 because I didn't outright qualify. That was the way I wanted to get there. But I'm thankful that I get the opportunity to go because it opened my eyes to stuff that I wasn't aware of. So things that I should have been doing or I wasn't doing, it showed me that it consequences for not doing, or you know what I mean. So like Coach Steve say, basically, if you ain't prepared going into the meet, you basically already defeat yourself before you even go to the blocks in the ring. Whether you're
big, what about if you physically ain't prepared, but you still gotta go run? How you did? Well, you physically prepared to go through against man watching like 22 odd meters. How do you go in there and still compete, knowing that you ain't on their level?
How you know me on their level? That's the thing. I going in there with the same chip on my shoulder as they go in there. You go to 22, I go to 23. There we go. You know what I mean? That's the kind of mentality that I try to keep when I go into the ring because, like I said, what makes them better than me? Like when I speak to some of my competitors and I see the years of experience that they have over me and I see what I already accomplished, like why would I put myself down? You know what I mean? So it's like you can't go in there. Yes, they may be better than you, but you never know. You may have a spectacular day and they may not just be on top, and a win is a win.
There you go. There you go.
Sophia, I have a question. So and then she asks a question. You're muted.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. Eldred with smiley face. I have a question which is really more for Chiron, because you have competed in major competitions when you had some physical injury or you're recovering. So there's two questions actually really. Is how do you go into competition knowing that you are maybe going to be challenged to get the result that you know you would when you're fully fit? And then the second question is for, I know all of you because I've subjected you to it, is how do you deal with outside noise? And perhaps Dr. Ottley could make some suggestions too as to how do you deal with being required to have press conferences, meet with media, deal with any reports or outside noise that's in between races.
My attention span a little short right now, so you can have to repeat the first question. Let me answer the first question.
How did you adjust your state of mind when you competed? I think it was in Doha, when you had an injury or you were had recovered from injury, and entering that race. Yeah.
For me, basically, I went in there with a mindset that I forget what injury was. I want to believe I was recovering off a torn hamstring. Yeah. So I had just come back from the doctor basically in Germany, and we had like a month and a half to prepare, or 2 months. But going into the finals race, I already had to tell coach and the players around me that if I have to tear my hamstring in this race to medal, like I would tear it, because that's the end of the season and I would have all the time to recover. So I literally went in a race with a mindset that I'm willing to tear both of my hamstrings, my quad, everything to try to medal. But I mean, me medal, so, and me tearing a hamstring, so that's good. So at the same time, it was just me like proving to everybody else that even when I injured, that I could still be in the top 5. Like, you should not count me out. And I mean, I would have my day again to compete against everybody that want to circuit fairly again. So I mean, it's not a big thing for me to actually go on the track and psych myself out. I mean, I already beat majority of the people that there is to beat. So I've been to the top. I know how it feels to be to the top. And just like how I had my day when I fall, they can have their day when I fall. But when they fall, I can fall harder than me because I can be running past them. So that's just my little cockiness right there. the next question, what a question was?
Can I pause you with the word cocky? You know, cocky is when you like Muhammad Ali is not cocky, wasn't cocky, right? Mm-hmm. He said his thing because he knew he could back it up. Cocky is when you say something and you don't have the skills to back it up, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's your confidence, man. I'm loving you. So it's good.
What's the next question was, Ms. Faye? I forgot what next.
So the second part was, how do you, and again, Dr. Ottley may have some tips, how do you deal with and block out external noise in between races, from heats to finals, where, as you know, you may be required to interview with media, do press conferences. Perhaps there's some feedback and chatter that's going on through social media. How do you, what are the techniques and the suggestions to not be distracted by all that?
I mean, for me, I don't know what it is for everybody. Hold on. Think got a question there, you know. You want me to answer and then you can answer? All right, cool. For me, on that level, in terms of social media, I know when to get off of social media and when to stay on social media. Like, for example, before the whole COVID-19 situation, pandemic happened, I was actually off of social media because it was Olympic year and I really had to tune in. So I didn't really wanted much people in my ear like, yo, you know, you got this, or we expect this, or whatever the case is. I literally went like blank to the wall, or whatever the case is. And I ran my first race indoor and that landed the #1 time in the world at the moment. So for me, it was working because I didn't have a lot of distraction and noise. I was just solely locked in on me and doing what I gotta do to focus, because at the end of the day, this is how I eat. And ain't nobody taking bread off my plate so easily, you understand? So just blocking out what everybody is saying and what the effect or what they want to do on you, you gotta know how that is the impact you as an individual. I know for Eldred could be on social media all the time, because when somebody talk, it probably might not reach this air, you understand? It might just stop right out here before it reach Eldred. So it's different for different people. For me, I know when to get off of social media. I know when to stay on social media.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's somebody else going?
Yeah, let me unmute you right quick. Yeah, unmute. Wow, Mr. Maduro.
Yeah, I have a question for the doc. Doc, when it comes to a small island like the Virgin Islands and or pick and pool for softball, baseball is not very large. How do you propose for us to get each athlete, not of the junior, but more of the elite players on the same mental field as you would like them to be for international competition? Because what I notice sometimes, we've been on national tournaments and our athletes, instead of focusing on defeating the teams that they're there to defeat, they're more concentrating on when they get back home to compete against each other. So how would you, what would be your advice to get them to be on the same wavelength, to be competitive and more focused on the international field?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's good to see you.
Yeah, welcome.
I could give you an example from what I experienced with Trinidad and Tobago netball team, because they, it was in the same situation and really wasn't getting the exposure to reach that level of match fitness. And during that time, and they did really well in Commonwealth Games 2010, and their training changed. What they did was they look at what the resources are around them. They knew that they're limited financially, they weren't getting funded. They know that people were choosing to do other sports than netball. It wasn't taking them anywhere, so they couldn't recruit. But the pool that they had and the training team that they were preparing, they identified certain skills that the women needed to have. And those certain skills were, they needed to have faster reaction time. They needed to be able to catch a powerful ball and to throw it not with a loop as they have been, but throw it in more closest distance, a straight line, and catch it. That will rock them. But they didn't have the muscles inside of there. So what it did was find some guys. The guys could run, not follow all the rules, but it's like a keeper wear. But the guys were very powerful and they were very, they could throw a ball really hard, and they just play against the men and mix it up. And the game was just so fast for them. The same, I've seen it done in field hockey. Most of us, grew up playing field hockey. We played against the men. So you find people who are fast, even if they're not versed at if they can throw hard, if they could just to get that kind of train the brain to react differently and faster and stronger. And so you have to find those creative ways to use who is around you, who, as you identify those skills that, okay, they're going up against the world, they're going to be getting balls coming at this miles per hour, and because everybody have their little timer, 95 miles per hour, okay, it's 75, or you do a curveball, bring in some cricketers, So you got to use what you have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I understand limited resources, and but I've seen the Cubans do it. I've been to their gym and they will lift in water bottles full with sand because they didn't have, any fancy things, so you gotta, it's just, we have such great imagination. And I really think I'm sitting on both sides. I see the US and I know in my heart, and that's why anybody calls me from the Caribbean and say, hey, could you come? I go. Because I know in my heart that our athletes are so, I'm trying not to use the word superior, but we don't know what we have in us. And the rest of the world, someone told me that, a coach told me that in Beijing Olympics. He said, we keep our eyes on the Caribbean and certain countries, and we hope that they never know how great they are. And that's why we beat them. So my job is to tell you, you guys, every time I'm always building. I'm always saying, hey, listen, let me teach you some skills. I share everything I know, because that's how I grow.
Okay. We have some more questions here. We'll soon wrap up shortly. Yes. Somebody have this is a very interesting question. Not me. I don't even know how to answer this myself because I've never been in this situation. How can I express to my coach that I am mentally fatigued, and how do I talk to him if he shouts at me when I do not do well? Man, that's tough.
A tough one.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Like, a part of me want to tell you, girl, go home. Like, just lead a coach or whatever the case is, because the worst thing on an athlete, to be honest, being in an athlete position is when you gain pressure from coach, when somebody is supposed to confine in and like really talk to and express yourself, because he has to be like a brother or a father, somebody close to you, and all you getting is a negative feedback. Like, that's not healthy. Like, me trying to talk down on nobody or whatever the case, just saying that's not a healthy relationship for athlete coach type of vibes. You understand?
Can I just add a little something?
Yeah.
It's part of it's a great opportunity for the athlete commission, for you guys, to have some coaching education, some sessions where you could bring coaches together and teach them things like this. I know we have in the US, for all of us to travel with the national team, we must do that safe sport, have that safe sport certificate, which is about bullying. It's about, really dealing with the athlete in a more, personable way. But education is one way to help those athletes, because coaches know what they know. And if they're not growing, they only do what they know.
But same with some coaches like to push, but sometimes athletes need a little hard push, a little talking hard situation. But we have a question from Mr. Archer. I can unmute you now. I try and unmute you, but you ain't unmuting, so yeah. All right. Take the road, chat.
With regards to that issue with yelling at athletes when they not performing well or when they feel like they need a break. I mean, sometimes I tell my kids, sometimes to move forward, you have to take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes a lot of the coaches, they never, well, for me personally, I never compete in archery. So I was telling this, and I can't, I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes, because I'm only preparing you. Mm-hmm. So, and that's another thing, when we come back and they asking me questions, I say, well, I'm the coach, my job is the easy part. The athletes are the one who have to perform. So as a coach, you don't know what kind of pressures the athletes are being under.
Yeah.
You could see them trembling, you could see them sweating, you could see them biting the fingernails, but you could only assume what kind of pressure they're feeling. Because you're on the outside, basically, you're on the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me?
Yeah. Good point.
Floor is yours. I try and unmute you, but probably make up. Yeah. Floor is yours.
Yeah. Good evening. On that same note that we're talking about coaches and athletes and dealing with athletes, on a certain level. I actually just finished doing that safeguarding course, both from the US and the English federations. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they made mention to is a lot of our coaches locally need to educate themselves a lot more in terms of dealing with the psychological problems that athletes have. And sometimes coming from backgrounds of the Caribbean where you have a lot of single parent relationships in families, that's one of the major breakdowns. A lot of our coaches don't spend time learning the athletes in a certain manner and how to best deal with problems rather than shouting. I've coached a team where I actually sat on the bench and didn't say anything for almost the whole game. and the team won, and one of the guys came up and said, Coach, could I ask you a question? How come you hardly said anything in the game? I said to him, didn't we have a team meeting before we went in the field? He said yes. I said, didn't I give you your game instructions? He said yes. He said, so why should I have to shout? Did you understand what your job was? Yes. Then I said to him, I said, if you fail and I shout at you, does that solve the problem? He said, Coach, you're right, you know. I said, that's for me to fix when we get on the training sessions again. I can't fix it in the game. So a lot of times we as coaches need to educate ourselves at a higher level. I actually did 10 courses in 4 days between the US Federation Soccer Learning Center and English Federation as well. So a lot of times it boils down to us educating ourselves as coaches. Because coaches, the word coach can be described in a lot of variety of different ways. Your father, your brother, your mentor, your teacher. So, you know, we have to be really serious if we're going to take on that job. As a coach, we have to gain all the knowledge we can to help these athletes, or else we'll just be spoiling that athlete.
Yeah. You have a next question in one moment. Yes, this is an interesting one. I want Dr. Ottley answer this one because she obviously can know the answer to this one. How do I manage my children's depression after being defeated by a race? Who the parents them is for this one? Wait, we got parents in here actually? Oh no. Sweet. Anybody could take the question then.
I feel like Dr. Ottley should answer that question so that
I will give somebody else a chance to speak.
No, but I feel like it's a problem. So in like how import in trying like educating the parents on how to properly manage that might be more beneficial. You know?
Hold on. I see my sister in here, so I can ask my sister. Kayana, how would you manage me if I have depression after a race? Let me see if she...
your mother?
Is it Kayana? So I assume it's Kayana. She answering me. You see, she even listening. Well, sir. Well, sir. Anyways, all right, Dr. Ottley, you can answer the question.
Yeah, it's a behavior.
Yes, Kai, we can hear you.
Oh, she answered no. Yeah. So if I can't press both a race, what are you going to do to cheer me up? Talk to your boy.
Sorry, say that again. Say that again.
If I call you depressed from losing a race, what would you do to calm me down?
Barrels.
I would be inspirational, telling you it's okay to lose because it is okay to lose, and you know, you'll go at it again. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep practicing hard, and you'll do better for the next race.
Why, if I say you want to hear that, what's your next move?
That's typical you. You ain't want to hear that, but I'm going to still talk at you. Still talk and give you that boost that you need, because more than likely you'll be shut down knowing you, and you'll be upset and highly disappointed, but I'll keep going at it. I won't push it too much, but then I'll always call you back the next day when you calm down after you don't blow off your steam, and then go at it again. You know, boost you up, because we all face those disappointments in life and we get down, and sometimes talking about it right away isn't necessarily the right approach, because it'll go in one air and come out the other. However, but leaving you to cool off and then coming back at it, then you're ready to hear what people have to say and take it in, and then get back your boost and your encouragement to go again.
Sound like you went to psychology class.
But yeah.
All right. I can just call on people randomly, you understand? Let me see them paying attention, you understand? Dr. Ottley, would you like to put input into that before we wrap up shortly?
Yeah, let me just talk a little bit just on that losing aspect, because athletes do get down, and sometimes they don't want to tell their parents or they don't want to go to their parents because they know their parents are going to say, oh, you know, we love you and you'll do better. But athletes, they want something more sometimes, and that's why they don't listen. But for me, I always want athletes to understand that losing is an important part of winning.
That's the same thing Jordan say.
An important part of winning. And they must understand that, yeah. Because losing is an opportunity to know, and I am quoting him, an opportunity to know what you're not good at and what you have to work on. And what Michael Jordan said is that if you meet somebody, you know, you come and you meeting them, you know, as equals, and they come out ahead of you, you go back to the drawing board, because that's the importance of practice. And I always tell athletes, take practice seriously, because practice is the time you work things out. So you don't cut up the practice. You don't say, oh, I'm going to give 70% at practice. So then, but when it's a big game, I'm going to ask my buddy to give 100%. Because the buddy, if you don't train the buddy to give 100%, you are calling injuries on yourself. Because now you have to push your body. So practice, you go back to practice and you work it out. And what Michael Jordan said is that the next time we meet, we actually come as equals, or I am going to be on top, right? So it gives you information. A soldier don't know how strong he or she is until he, you know, meets an opponent. A tree doesn't know how strong it is until it faces a storm. So put it in perspective.
Yeah.
The more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in battle.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Unless the enemy catch you from behind, but you know what I mean. Anybody else have any more questions that they would like to ask? Y'all did submit some questions to this, but obviously time has been running, and I don't know if y'all have stuff to do, but if y'all have any questions, could you please ask or raise your hand? Something. Interaction, situation like that. No questions. Eldred, you have a question? I think you have a question. Yeah, you raise your hand? No? Okay. No, okay. Taisha? Omar?
Morris, Mark.
Cool, Karen.
I don't know if I have a question or like an input.
Yeah, but I'm not a Zoom coaching meeting.
Y'all can hear me?
A coaching meeting. This is relevant. Coaching meeting.
Sorry about that.
Hello? I am.
Yeah, Taisha.
Okay, so for Dr. Ottley, thank you for taking the time out to do this forum with us. So one of the things that I like, back to one of the questions that they asked previously in terms of your experience as a youth versus your experience as a professional athlete. And I feel like a lot of times as a youth, in my time, I didn't have any pressure. It was more about I'm that only person that was competing. So I had the opportunity to compete at a lot of different meets, a lot of different competitions during that period, and not really have that worry of what to expect. Like just go out there and do your best. So I kind of use that as my rule. As I got older and the expectation became greater, I think a lot of us have this issue where we put on a persona, like, or if I even have a son where I say, okay, let's go to the sports psychology meeting, and they think something so negative about it. Yeah. But the idea that we all struggle with something internally, and a lot of time we tend to say, you know what, let's keep it inside and let's internalize all this information, and it kind of makes it worse for us. So even though we prepare ourselves mentally to go out there on the field of play and do what we need to do, like everything seems fine, and then when you get in a race, as you said, that seventh hurdle, something happens. Like for me, I never had an issue technically going out there and competing. But when 60, 70 meters came in, there was some form of mental block that I wish that I attacked on an earlier level, because when I was training, nobody couldn't tell me that I wouldn't be number one in the world, because my practice session stated that, like hands down. But when it competition, that anxiety kind of builds up and we don't deal with it. So I think that the sports psychology aspect and that mental play aspect that we really do have to train, because a lot of people tend to say, you know what, it's not that big of a deal. Oh, I gonna kind of figure it out later. But sometimes you really don't figure it out until it's too late. So I really think that it's a great idea that the parents, the coaches, whoever your surrounding staff is, make it easy for the athletes to be able to talk and internalize or express whatever it is that they're going through, whether or not it's big. Because sometimes when we say, oh, well, I'm scared to do this, oh, why you being a punk, or why you being this person, so then they kind of retreat and not even say what they really want to say, because they feel like everybody takes it as something negative.
Yeah.
So it's really important that when an athlete expresses that these are concerns, no matter how big it is to you or the other person, that's a concern of them. And when they go out to compete, those are the things that's going to materialize as they go on. So I think that's really a big deal, that we really have to focus on that, because if we don't, we tend to dig ourselves deeper in this what you call that mental block, because then we do kind of set limitations for ourselves within that process of not knowing how to resolve those things, because the people around us are not kind of doing it on a better level to help us do it, because sometimes we can't do it on our own, and we need that extra push where it may come from somebody that you don't even think it may come from, but to have that person there to say that, you know what, when I was competing, I had this problem, but don't let's wait till it's too late for them to figure that out. Like, let them do it as a younger age to express, well, why you went out there and compete bad, or if we come from a small country, oh, go out there and get a medal, because now all we're thinking about is winning a medal. No, let's go through that process of developing, and then as we develop, as we go through our trials, as we lose, as we figure out who we are, as we figure out who our strengths are, then we become better athletes.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent point.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is about the whole person. And we forget, sometimes we make it about us. Sometimes I come off really cocky. I'm using your term there, cocky. They might say I'm arrogant, and I just kind of brush it off and say, hey, I'm Caribbean. I'm a Caribbean woman. And, I'm arrogant. That's all right. I could claim it. But the thing is that no matter what, it's not about us. It's not the coaches have to see it. The athlete is the talent. It's always athlete first. The athlete is the one who has us flying and doing things and going and see places. We follow the athlete, and we got to see the athlete's dream. If we can't see it, then we sabotage it. But if we could see it, then we become an important part of or resource for the athlete to get to where they are. And sometimes we are dealing with our own issues, like, that we used to run, and we talk about ourselves, when we this, and the athlete is trying to say, hey, listen, this is my time. I just need you to use that experience to get me to another place. But you're stuck, and anybody who is stuck in their coaching or doing sports psychology or doing administration, if you're stuck inside of yourself and your past experiences, you cannot take the athlete at another level. It always have to be about the athlete and their dream. And we got to see what a dream is. If we're blocking it, that means we don't understand who we're helping.
Exactly. I support that 100%. Leva, you have a question? I see you very in tune. Let me unmute you right there. Try and unmute you. Yeah, you got to unmute yourself. But Leva, I think you stick, actually.
It does, but I think they tried to block that from happening.
Sorry. Anybody have any more questions? No?
Are we going to wrap?
Turn it over to Ashley. Ashley, the floor is yours.
Yeah, one last question quick. We're going to have another session, right? I really enjoyed this session.
I think it could be arranged, I basically free all day every day due to COVID-19. So anybody say that they're busy, them like, because COVID-19 got everybody shut down. So just lay down, and if they say they're busy, they don't want to talk to you. You don't understand. But it could be arranged. Very inspirational. Next time we could touch on a different topic rather than have drag Miss Ottley back here. We could touch on some different stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like, me, I really say much out there. You understand?
Yeah. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say it's a great thank you for the opportunity to be able to hear you as well. It's always good to. You guys are doing, this is just an amazing thing, because I know all of the Caribbean islands out there that's competing, and I know they struggle to put something like this together, especially from the mental aspect that most people still don't get, to the level of walking that extra step and making it happen.
Yes.
But always remember that the rest of the world, Australia doesn't, do anything without a sports psychologist. Canada, always, every single sport. The US, we have multiple sports psychologists with our youths and up to the senior levels. And you are coming up to compete with these people. So I am loving this opportunity that you guys have presented me with, and I thank you. I thank the Athlete, Commission and also the Olympic Committee.
Yes, and I was just informed that there will be practical activities after the workshop to continue what we've learned tonight. And if people want more information, they can email, I guess, the BVIOC on the flyer, right? No, right here in contact. Yeah, the information right there in this little box on the side. Yeah, the Athletes Commission at BVIOlympics.org. I know what kind of activities they have planned, but they got something planned. All right, thank you everybody for coming.
It was supposed to be like more meditation and stuff, but you should always have something that is very practical. But I wanted to be able to share a background about sports psychology, because I too often my Caribbean coaches would ask me to do things and tell me about the mental aspect, and I'm like, if you're bringing me in as to share my expertise, then allow me to do so.
Yeah. So, and Miss Dr. Ottley, I would like to thank you for coming out and sparing this spare time to talk to the youth and myself about sports psychology. I know how important it is, but as you say, some people feel they don't need talk to it. I always feel like I need talk to one, but I never got around to talk to one, really and truly, per se. But I feel I might look into it. That's probably why I break the world record yet, mentally.
Hey, you gotta do it.
But anyways, yes. Thank you guys for coming. And if you want to stay and see Chappie dance, we could lead a Zoom running and try to connect to Facebook somehow. If we could do that there, or if y'all have important things to do, you know what I mean? This is where you sign out and go on about your business. Yes. Thank you guys for coming.